So I've had this fantasy sci-fi book idea in my head for a long time, and I finally decided to actualize it a couple months ago. I started rigorously planning, searching up videos on how to write, how to plot, and I sat down and I wrote 3 chapters about. And there's one night I was writing away. I was like, ooh, this is so good. Like, my book is coming along so well. And then I go to bed and then I wake up and I wasn't having a good morning. Okay, I woke up and I just wasn't feeling my best. I just needed something to pick me up. So I'm like, let me just go and look at the writing I wrote last night. You know, I'm sure I'll just look at my book and be so happy about what I wrote. I turn on my phone, I go to Google Docs, and I read my draft. And I say to myself, this is the worst thing I've ever read. I think writing was harder than I thought it was. Let me just say that. I knew it was going to be hard, but my line-by-line writing and pacing was the issue. Fair. But then there's this little voice in the back of my head. I watched this TikTok and some girl was saying that your first draft is just you telling yourself the story. Like, it doesn't matter how it's written. You're just telling yourself the story, getting it on paper, and then you can go from there. And I'm thinking about my prose and how I can make my pacing better and write better line by line. But then I realized, okay, let's just get this draft on paper. Let's just plot out this book and call it a day. I do have a lot to show for it though. So let's take a look at what I have, what I'm going to try and do in this video, which is make a fantasy map, flesh out some more things about my world, post some more questions, and write a little bit more. So what is my novel about? Why does it even matter? In my writing and in this book that I'm writing, I love speculative science fiction and fantasy. I love when a book poses a question about society or about human conditions, something. I was teetering with this idea about fate and destiny. In my brain, this book is 2 books. It's a duology. I wanted to combine what I love about old sci-fi and fantasy writers with that modern, fun, exciting energy that modern fantasy brings to writing right now. I just want to get this down on paper because this story I feel like needs to be told, you know? Like, I haven't seen a book like this written, and it's practically, I'm not going to give away too much because I don't want to put it out there. I don't even want to say what the title is, okay? I don't know, maybe I'm superstitious or something, but it's about this girl who lives in an alternate future reality of Earth. Earth's political system definitely looks different. There's 3 authoritative figures spread out around the continents of Earth. Earth definitely looks different at this point. I still have to decide what's going on, but they're practically called the Sentinels. I don't know if I'm going to change their name. They're practically like these AI, all-knowing computers that these humans built to answer our questions about this world, about religion, about fate. Every question asked or posed to these Sentinels, these computers that humans made, could answer these questions for us. And we, in turn, as humans, idolize these Sentinels and regarded them as our gods now. So in this version of Earth, Sentinels are the ones that are the governing figures. Any question, any answer, whether conflict, anything going on in this world, the Sentinels, the 3 Sentinels can convene towards each other, these AIs, and come up with the best possible plan for humanity, for humans, because we think we can't think for ourselves anymore as humans in this version of my book. And there's a huge divide between 2 sections of this world. There is the human lands and the Ari lands, which I might change the word Ari. It's just kind of like a stand-in word I came up with for like these elven, fae-like magic user people that live on the other side of the veil. Okay, their history is obviously very entwined, the human history and the Ari history. There's a lot shrouded about human history. I would say that humans in my book are unaware of their past and don't know their true past, and the Ari in this book want to understand and control their future. So there is a clashing divide between the 2 and what they want, but it shouldn't matter, right? Because they haven't contacted each other for hundreds of years. So the silence has been silent. They live their separate lives. What really happened? Was there a war? Why is there a divide? All until the very beginning of my book opens, where a black void has summoned itself in the world. And the Sentinel is now calculating who can go into this, what is the best idea, who is the best fit to even enter this black void? How do we tackle this black void? And the Sentinels think somebody has to go through it. So this is Paige's story of how she uncovers the world between the humans and the Ari. The humans' past, the Ari's future, how they are intertwined inevitably, how we can come together as people and control our fate and what's beyond, what becomes religion at this point, what becomes God, who is our rulers, who's above us. It's all decided within this story. I also wanted to put elements of romance into this because I love romance, and I think that our two main characters complement each other so well. You will meet the second male main character in the book. And it also shows a very compelling character story for her because she's not a main character that is like super like strong and like she wants to be a warrior. Like, she's not a Feyre or a Jude, you know? Her strength lies in her nurturing and her care for people. Her strength is not physical, but it is mental. It is who she is to people. And I wanted to make a character like that because I just am so sick of like the strong warrior type girl characters, which I love to see sometimes, but I also just wanted something different. And how much a character like her can impact a story the same way without fighting and being a warrior. She's smart, skilled. She's also inquisitive, but she's also scared. You know, there's a lot of juxtapositions about her. And I just think she makes a great main character. So anyway, enough about this. I really also wanted to combine the elements of magic and technology. Like, what does that look like together? Where do they clash? What causes divide? Who would win between a magic user and someone who has technology like guns and things in the future? I'm going to show you what I've gotten done so far. So let's head over to my iPad to show you what I've brainstormed so far. Okay, so this is like the brain dump that I have. I don't use this brain dump much anymore. There is ideas in here, but I mainly have notes where I keep all my information about my book and scenes that come to my head. But this was me just really figuring it out. Like, for example, I knew that I wanted cyberocracy in there. Heralds was the idea I came up with. There's like human officials that are assigned to them. Thinking about time travel, magical portals. None of this is finite, and most of this I've changed a lot of, but this was my first brain dump here. I moved to a more structured plan on Milanote, which is way better to use than just writing it everywhere. It's called Project Arc, so that's just the project name. It's not the name of the book. Please ignore my nails, they're so bad, I'm so sorry. But I followed a act sequence that another writing YouTuber made. I don't remember her name. So I started writing out the scenes here. I don't want to zoom in too much because I don't want it to be read. There's Act 1 scenes, and then I was writing Act 2 scenes, Act 3, and I think I have a 3-act structure going on. I also have a note for my characters here. So I'm not done with this. I kind of want to change his profile. I don't really like the art that I made, but this is the art I made for Paige. I only added her quirks and flaws, which I think I might try and fill this out more today. One is freaks out under stress, freezes when someone is in distress, and not great at standing up for herself. So those are some flaws she has, or quirks. He's fear of like being close with someone romantically. There is a reason for that, and he was also born during the war, and he was raised in a library, so he's very connected to history and the literature of his world. He's also believed to be cursed. He thinks he's cursed. It's a whole thing. But anyway, that's what I have for Project Arc so far. I think I'm going to start with making a map and fleshing out some other ideas that I have. So let's head to my computer to make this map. Okay, I am on Incarnate. I'm gonna try and flesh out my idea of what the map looks like. Instead of drawing with my mouse, I'm gonna use my drawing pad. Honestly, didn't think this would come in handy for years. It's literally dusty. Let me see if this still works. It seems like it works. Ooh, and it deleted. Okay, perfect. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's this separation between the RE lands and the human world. So there is like a wall, right? There is like a veil. In my head, I always kind of imagine like a very hilly English countryside, Scotland kind of vibe in my head. For some reason, like very hilly. I'm thinking like a map that kind of goes longwards, right? There's an island I mentioned in this book somewhere that has to do with death. I don't know where the line would be. It could be like cold. How cold is this? Where's our equator? This is so difficult. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking maybe even a very slim passage, like this is the RE land, and it goes very slim. And then it connects to the human lands here. I want there to be enough water between them on both sides that, like, if you're crossing over, it's that area, you know? Now that I have my general shape, I'm going to play around with it and see what I come up with. So let's see. So this is what I've added so far. We have one castle and then the opposite, which are definitely two opposing kingdoms. I imagine that there's 4 kingdoms in the RE land, so 2 here and then 2 kind of here. This island here is undiscovered. I'm probably going to try and make that known. And this is the island relating to that. And this is the veil between the human lands, and then this is going to be the RE lands. I'm gonna work on this a little bit more and come back to it. So, okay, so this is what I came up with for the map. I'm gonna go over it quickly. This is just the RE lands. It's not the human lands at all, because those are cities and it wouldn't really work for a fantasy map. So I'll start us off at the bottom. This is the tower before the veil, the line between the human lands. And then you go up, and this would be like a voyage station. So there'd be a bunch of horses here, and they'd be going out into the land. They're separated by 2 sides here. So we have one castle and the other castle. I'm not gonna give away, but these are the 2 opposing kingdoms. There's a lot of history between these 2 lands and the land that they own, and whose is what and what is whose. It's a constant beef between them, and it kind of gets reshaken up in this book. Chapter 1 kind of takes place here. So here's the towns. This is like where the ports would be. There's a little tower here on the very edge, and this is like their farmlands. This is the town for the other side. They have multiple ports here, and then their castle, and there is a bunch of hills. And we'll go up to this side. So following this mountain range is kind of the more dried, desert-like plains kind of land. This is the 3rd kingdom, and they have more villages here. They have a coast. They have kind of like dead trees in their forest. And then going back down, and then following the stream up, we come to another kingdom here, the 4th kingdom. This is the only kingdom that really has snow-capped mountains. And then they have a port, and this port isn't touched by many people. It has a purpose, this island here, and then this is the human lands. So that is my map so far. But I like that I have it mapped out so that when I do reference it in my writing, it makes sense. I'll probably redo this somehow, but this took me a while. So this is my Word document of everything I just come to think about that I write in. When a scene comes to my head, I write it immediately. I usually think in scenes. So I was thinking, since the human race is so far in the future in my book, I'm like wondering if I should make it so that everyone kind of doesn't have a strong racial look. So everyone is kind of ambiguous in a way, because I don't know if there's like a study about it or something, that like the human race will eventually push towards being way more multiracial, and we'll have all very multiracial looks to us eventually. Of course, there's still going to be people that have stronger features towards one race than the other, but I thought it'd be interesting that everyone would kind of look different in the future than what we're used to seeing here, because we evolved with multiculturalism so much. And then it gets into a question of like, how does that affect religion and culture? Like, how integrated will it be? Because then we also have the Sentinel, these AIs that kind of have the answer to everything. Like, will religion cease to exist? In a sense, I don't think it would ever really cease to exist, but I think that way less people would believe in religions the way we do today. I think it'd be more pockets of people. I don't know if those people would be allowed to practice outwardly because the Sentinel exists. And the Sentinel is a very neutral, no god, but the Sentinel is like the only god, right? And I also wanted to play with religions in the RE land, the other land. I wanted to tackle religion in a different way of dividing religion by class. There's dukes and duchesses of these lands that are like harborers of these lands, that own these lands and have these castles and bloodlines that date back hundreds of years to where they are geographically, because where they are in the land geographically in the RE lands matters a lot. Because I think my magic system here, I wanted to kind of work by bloodstream, but also by how much magic is infused into the land, into the ground. Every tree, every hill, every grassland, there is some semblance of magic holding there. That's why the southernmost part of the land is like a no man's land, where no one can touch this area, because it is where the veil is. The magic there needs to be preserved. There can't be any other energies, no magic use can go on within those lands. That's why it is neutral territory for all areas, because it cannot throw off the balance of the land that keeps the veil in order. How this veil stays up though, how it is brought up and stayed up, it is like a doubled veil. There's the human side and the RE side. The human side is kept up by technology. It's like a physical barrier, right? Almost like a force field of like electricity. Say you pass through that, you'd be met with the RE veil, which is fused together magically. And how it's fused together is by vessels. So the strongest magic users in the land, which are the people that are dukes and duchess of this land. I don't know if I'm gonna use dukes and duchess or emperor, empress. I don't know what I'm gonna do exactly, but they would channel their magic into a vessel. And everyone holds that vessel with the intent of keeping the wall up. So it is like a force field, because everybody, all 4 kingdoms, agreed that they are going to withhold that and keep the veil up. I also wanted to show very unique social structures and ideas of how our world could look like and how certain things could run. Each area has its different challenges and resources, obviously. I want this world to feel lived in and breathed in, and I think to do that in a fantasy world, you have to have means of trade, where resources come from. Is there monsters destroying the land? What is the cost of this? I was thinking of having these religions broken up by class. So the dukes and duchess of these 4 kingdoms and the people who are like warriors, or people whose story makes change in this world, are of the higher class. I wanted to tie a little bit into the fates. Like, I want there to be this idea of the fates, just like in Greek mythology, but it's kind of different. It's not the same. I don't know if I'll call them the fates. These people that believe in the fates religion that are of higher class think that whatever they do here in their land, in their story, it impacts how they are written into mythology to come. Because I wanted to kind of dabble with the idea of, for example, like Greek mythology. Did these gods come first, or was the mythology written about them first? If these gods knew there were stories written about them, would they change what they do? Does that make sense? Well, anyway, that's kind of what I'm going for when it comes to the higher class people in the RE lands, and how much they think about how they're remembered and how their story will be carried in future generations of this land and of this world. So the people that know that they can make a big change in this world, the people of higher class that have capital, can believe in this religion, because they can make very big, swift changes in the world. For the better, for the worse. They want their story written authentically to them. It's very self-serving almost. And so the male main character, he believes he is cursed because something tragic happens to every lover he's ever had, and he's scared of repeating that cycle, and he so desperately wants to understand how to break it, and he falls deeper into his faith and into his religion to try and solve this issue. It costs him a lot. So, and he has to take up this responsibility that he's not sure he feels ready for. The circumstances around him becoming elevated in a position of power are very tricky, and he's navigating this in the book. I also would like to mention that like the human history side of things is very murky, because their history is written by people called the storytellers. It's interesting if history is what it seems, because it was a curated written version of human history. It's not from people before in history writing this. It is new storytellers telling what the human history is according to the Sentinel. So things get murky between what people know. I hope I'm not like overdoing it with how thick this can become. Does that make sense? There's a lot to think about. There's a lot in my head. Like, there's so much in my head. Let me just get to writing. I have about 3,540 words, which is not bad. I don't know how I feel about my opening scenes. The pacing is not it. The line craft is not it. Like, I'll read my first sentence for my first opening. It goes, "The sun's golden light peeked through the leaves of a willow tree where a bird perched in its nest." I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of painting a scene here of a bird in its nest with its mother, and eventually like the mother pushes the bird off to learn to fly, and the bird eventually falls, and our main character stands up to try and see if the bird like caught itself and flew back up, or if it died. And when she gets to stand up, she hears rustling through the trees. She looks behind her and someone is calling to her, initiating another scene. So you never really know if the bird fell and died or not. And I wanted the symbolism to be there at the beginning, and I think I'm going to keep that at the beginning. It has meaning to her character. You know, I want there to always be like little Easter eggs in my story, if that makes sense. Like, there's always something to find. I don't know if I like how I write my lines, but yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna show you my Pinterest board I have for it. I haven't curated this as much as I'd like to. I have like a sewing shop here because the main character makes dresses. She likes to sew. And I'm kind of thinking of a landscape kind of like this, you know? I really like this, where it's like water spirits. There's something taking place with water spirits and the Death Island that we'll get into in the first book, I'm pretty sure. So I added that here. Also, I really liked this painting artwork. These gods, these fates, kind of in another plane, playing with the ideas of people's fates, right? And very grand architecture. Like, my brain always thinks very, very tall, grand architecture. They're tall, their architecture reflects that. I like this painting here too, because it's very tall and it feels kind of like what a voyage station would feel like in my mind, but with just horses and no actual engines and trains. In my head, it's like where the fates convene somewhere on another plane. Yeah. All right, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed and it was entertaining for you. Let me know what you think and your thoughts about what's going on here. If you have any tips on line craft or writing craft, or where you learn to write or anything, please leave a comment. Otherwise, I hope this video was entertaining and hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.